Hey guys, Christian Brindle here. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video on this deep dive interview that I did with Glen Shelton for Taco Tuesday last week. I was really excited to be able to have the opportunity to do this and kind of show everybody in the audience the true story and just the background behind Glen and Lead Heroes. But before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly talk to you guys about Lead Heroes. If you're not using them for your telemarketing needs, for your Medicare supplement leads, final expense leads, custom calling campaigns, whatever it might be, live transfers, you really are missing out because they bring so much to the table. Their telemarketing leads are top-notch. Their callers are trained exceptionally well, and you can really kind of get whatever it is that you're looking for if you're selling life insurance, mortgage protection, final expense, Medicare supplements, whatever the case might be, turning 65 individuals. Just because you watch this video today, you're going to be getting 10% off all orders at checkout. There's a coupon code down in the description, along with a link over to the Lead Heroes website. Don't miss that. Take advantage of it today, and thanks for watching the video.
As a sales rep, and I had a sales background at this point, so I have been in sales since I was like 18 years old, 16 years. I've been selling stuff forever. So, but I get into Verizon, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a younger guy. I like technology. I like phones. I like computers, tablets. Their compensation was great.
How old are you at this point? Sorry to interrupt. How old are you at this point when you start with Verizon?
I was probably 20. I think I was 21. I think I was 21 years old.
Wow.
When I started at Verizon. So I'm 21. I'm working at Verizon. I do that for about a full 2 years, and it's going well. I mean, I'm in the top 10% in the company. So out of all, there's thousands of sales reps all across the US. I'm in the top 10%. I'm being compensated pretty well. The benefits are incredible. But like the biggest problem is I have no dictation over my own schedule, right? I'm a slave to them. I'm a slave to the retail hours. Because I'm one of the better sales rep, they're asking me to come in like on my days off. I have a wife and a child. And so it's like I'd go like 3 days in a row sometimes without seeing my kid, right? Yeah. And I hated that. And then the part that was really the straw that broke the camel's back in the whole situation was that Verizon, and hopefully they've changed this since then, but at the time they had a capped commission structure. And so, you get to a certain point and they slow down how much commission you can make. They de-accelerate you. And so you notice, so again, being in the top 10%, and I'm talking to these other sales reps who are at the top of the company, the reps that are even better than me, and they would basically work really hard for 2.5, 3 weeks, and then they would basically stop working and just kind of goof off for the rest of the month. And like, yeah, on one hand, I get that, right? Like you maxed out your structure and you've already got all of the compensation. So you don't really have to do much the rest of the month, but I would rather work hard the whole month and make as much money as possible. Like there was just such a disconnect for me. I love the people. I love the job. I got paid really well, but that was the final thing. I couldn't make that make sense. They offered me a management position in the company, hey, become assistant manager at this location for a year. Then you could be a store manager, and then you could switch into the business vertical if you wanted, or you could, jump into a regional manager position in 5 years and blah, 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 blah. They gave me the whole spiel, but I'm just like, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, this capped commission structure, I can't do it. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. Could you imagine if insurance was like that, if it was capped?
Unbelievable. They're like, all right, you've made 25 sales this week, but you're done. You make any more and you're it doesn't matter. We appreciate it if you make more, but we're not going to pay you anymore. I can't even imagine a world like that.
Imagine this is how the structure, just to really kind of beat a dead horse here. So imagine you're selling a med sup and you get to 30 med sups on the month and they say, hey, we're going to de-accelerate you from 20%, your normal commission, and any med sups you sell for the rest of the month, we're only going to pay you 7%. But then at the first of the month, next month, you're going to go back to 20%. Like it's just, just listen to that. Like it doesn't make, why would you take your best salespeople and demotivate them to sell? Like Verizon, if you're hearing this, Please save yourself. Oh my gosh.
It's interesting too, because, a company of that size, you think that they would value sales. They think that they would value sales, and you think they would value salespeople that can bring a lot of revenue into their store and into their company. But that's just very interesting to kind of see that.
I think if I had to kind of play devil's advocate for Verizon, I think they valued their brand and their marketing so much that they felt there's going to be a certain amount of business that walks through those doors, whether they pay those salespeople really, really well or mediocre. So, again, they're beholden to the shareholders. They're trying to maximize profits. And so I'm sure that's how this whole crazy commission structure came about. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine taking the best salespeople in my company and saying, hey guys, we're capping you after you hit, a certain number. Like it's just mind boggling to me.
Yeah, that's a tough sell in and of itself right there, to convince someone like that, a talented salesperson. So you're at Verizon. How long are you working at Verizon? How long did you end up there?
So it was about 2 years.
Okay.
It was about 2 years. So I was somewhere between I was about 21 when I got in, and then it was somewhere around 22 to 23. It was right around that 2-year mark where I kind of had these two paths I'm looking at. I'm looking at management. I'm being offered an assistant manager job. And then I'm thinking, how can I get into a sales position that has uncapped commissions?
Right.
And I'm looking at the first thing I actually did an interview with Waddell and Reed to become a financial advisor. So that was really the first thing that took me down the insurance road. Is I'm sitting in a Waddell and Reed office, and I'm being interviewed, talking about the job and what it entails. And the lady that's interviewing, she's like, well, there's really two things, they're like, we offer insurance products, which that can sometimes be easier to sell because it's more of a tangible, a tangible policy that you're offering someone. But then we also do this financial management, and that's where you make a lot of money, but it takes 20, you have to talk to people a bunch. And, I think she was being really realistic. She was trying to give me a good snapshot of what it was. And in that interview, I was like, it sounds like insurance is easier to sell than trying to convince someone, hey, let me manage your $500,000. And keep in mind, I'm 22 years old, 23 years old. And I'm just like, nobody wants to give me $500,000 to have me manage it. That was my thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 100%. And for me personally, I got in and I really started to hit my stride in selling Medicare around that age too, around 21, 22. And it wasn't at that point, I looked like I was 16, and it was intimidating enough for me to try to sell them a $0 premium Medicare Advantage plan in some cases where it didn't cost me anything. I can only imagine, being put in the situation like that where you're like, hey, I'm 21 years old. I just got my, I can now finally legally drink, but hand over, $100,000 to me or something like that. I can only imagine that. So you interview with them. And so did you end up taking a job with them to sell insurance? Is that how it began?
So then Waddell and Reed said, hey, we like you, but we want to do another interview with you. And so they have a 3-interview process, something ridiculous. And I just said, I declined it because that sent me spiraling down the insurance. I was like, okay, I like this. It's on cap commissions. I don't really want to be a financial advisor right now, maybe later. I like insurance. So then I started researching everything insurance related because I had this feeling that I wanted to go into insurance. I knew it was on capped commissions. I knew it was a little easier to sell than maybe some of these other things like real estate. All these, obviously there's so many different sales positions you could think of that could potentially be on cap commissions, but I'm looking at life insurance, home insurance, auto insurance. I mean, literally any vertical commercial insurance. I kind of was exploring all of these different verticals, and I wanted to find something that was the lowest barrier to entry. That was really my goal, is how can I find something that's relatively easy that I could jump into, I can make good money and work for myself without kind of that financial advisor startup period, right? Because again, their pitch to me was like, you can make a ton of money, but it's going to take years. You have to build your clientele and all that stuff. And I wanted to be able to jump in and start making uncapped commissions right away. That was really my goal.
Yeah. So you come back for the second interview. Was there?
I declined the second. I said
you declined the second interview.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that part. So you declined the second interview. What happens from there? Because that obviously piques your interest, right? To get into the insurance industry. What happens from there? Is there another place that you go and start working at, or how does that take me through?
So then as I'm doing my research, I find a job listing on Craigslist for mortgage protection life insurance. So it's in Portland. So it's in Portland, Oregon. I'm living kind of, again, closer to Salem because of Oregon State. That's the whole reason I moved to Oregon. But I'm like, you know what? It seems like life insurance, like there's a lot of money in this. It's pretty easy. You sit down with someone, you quote them an amount, they qualify, they get it, it's done. And the reason that this is what hooked me is they advertised a salary for starting agents at this agency. And that's when I was like, this is it. I'm like, guaranteed money. I can learn my career, get into the industry, and then branch out from there. Selling mortgage protection life insurance.
Do you remember what the starting salary they were offering was?
Oh, 100% I do. 100%. I know exactly what that was. It was $2,000 a month. It wasn't, it was $2,000 a month plus commission. It wasn't a draw. It was a legitimate, and again, for people who are, if you're watching this, listening to this, and you don't know what a draw is, there's a lot of insurance agencies or insurance jobs where they will essentially front you cash, but then you have to pay that money back out of your commission. So, hey, we're going to give you a draw of $3,000 a month, but if you sell 10,000 in commission, we're keeping the 3,000 and then you're only actually taking home 7. So it wasn't a draw. It was a legit salary, but then they were taking lead money out of either your commission check or your salary at the end of the month, which at the time when I'm getting into this, I'm thinking this is insane. I'm like, they're expecting me to pay hundreds of dollars in leads every single week. I'm like, how am I supposed to make any money if I'm going to be chunking out $1,000 or $2,000 at the end of the month? I'm like, and my wife, when I explained all this to her, she was super skeptical. She's like, it sounds kind of like a scam or a pyramid scheme. Like, they're going to give you a salary, but then you have to basically pay the salary back into leads, and then your commission, like, you're not going to get paid that for a while because the policy has to go through underwriting and get issued. And I'm LOA. So I'm not, well, actually that's not true. I wasn't LOA. I'm under a hierarchy. But again, there was still this whole process. But what ended up happening is during the interview, they say, listen, we could pay you a salary, but we think you're better off as a 1099 agent where you get straight commission. So at this point, I quit my job at Verizon. I'm expecting to get a salary with this company because they already hired me. Yeah. And then I'm a week into my new job, and they're basically telling me, don't take the salary, Glenn, just take the 1099 and just start selling. Here's the other thing I forgot to mention too is I took one of the reps with me from Verizon. So me and my buddy jumped head first. We left our comfy sales job. We're making a ton of money. We go head first into this, no salary, no benefits. We have no idea what insurance is. We don't know about leads. We don't know anything. We were so green. It was the greenest you could possibly be. It's insane to think about.
So how big is your family at this point?
It's just, I just have one child at this point. It's just
Okay.
me, my wife, and one child.
Now, even still, though, I mean, me having a child now, I can only imagine the stress and the pressure that would be put onto you in that situation, going from a great sales job where you're making all this money, you're accustomed to making all this money, to straight commission, straight 1099. Talk me through that a little bit. How was that process? What was that adjustment like? Was it kind of like a, cold shower right up front?
Well, yeah, well, the funny part is, like, if you see any posts anywhere or people talking about getting into insurance, there's like this rule of thumb that you'll see people talk about where it's like, have 3 to 6 months of income saved up when you get into the industry so you can take your time. I had maybe like a 20 or 30 day ramp. Like I had like maybe a month's worth of income to the point where I had to start bringing money in. So I mean, it was extremely stressful, right? Extremely stressful. I mean, I didn't have a bunch of bills at this point in my life, but you're still talking about, food, rent, like the basic necessities, car payment, I mean, just sink or swim was absolutely the mindset. It was like, I'm either going to crash and burn so hard. And part of me was like, I could go back to Verizon if I failed, but I really, in my mind, tried to burn those boats. I really did. It was like, I am going to make this work. I'm going to figure this out. Whatever I have to do, I'm moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you start off as 1099, were they providing you office space or were you working out of your house at the time? Talk me through that a second for a little bit. What did it all look like?
So the agency setup, and if anyone's, I don't think I need to name the agency, but NAA, everyone's familiar with NAA, National Agents Alliance. There's a million companies just like NAA, and this was one of them that I happened to sign up with. And the way the schedule essentially worked for the week is Monday I go into the office, I have my own desk, and it's a calling day. So all day Monday, we're sitting in the agency and we're all calling on leads and we're all setting appointments for the week. There's like me and maybe 7 or 8 other agents. There's the agency manager. And, you're getting some coaching from the manager. He's wanting to make sure that, your schedule's full. But I mean, that was about it. There wasn't a ton of support. I mean, there was some training, they're providing you an avenue for leads through them. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially it.
Man. So, were you doing mainly just final expense at this point, or was it final expense Medicare? Was it just life? What were you selling right up front?
So the interesting part is this agency had 3 different options. When you come in as an agent, they said you can sell Medicare, you can sell final expense, or you can sell mortgage protection. So I come into this agency and I'm like, this is super cool. And I'm coming in with the mindset that I want to be diversified. I'm like, I want to sell Medicare. I want to sell everything that you guys are selling. I want to sell. And the agency owner or the manager of the agency, he's like, there's no money in Medicare. No money in Medicare. We don't sell Medicare in this office. We don't sell Medicare in this office. It's a waste of time. Why would you go and make a $300 sale when you could sell mortgage protection life insurance and you could make $2,000 in one appointment, Glen? It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Medicare. I wish I could go back, dude. I wish I could slip back in time and be like, don't listen to him. He's a liar. He's not telling the truth. I'd be on a boat somewhere in the Bahamas.
So you're a new agent, right? You're kind of learning the ropes. I'm sure that you believed him.
100% hook, line, and sinker. I had no reason not to believe him. I'm thinking, from a credibility standpoint, he's telling me he's been in the industry for years and years and years. He's managing the office. He's driving around his Audi, right? Like he's got the whole, the look of success. I think his actual success was very much so more of an argument that could be made whether he was actually successful or not. But yeah, I mean, so I said, okay, okay, boss, No, I'm not selling Medicare. There's no money in Medicare. I guess I'm selling mortgage protection, life insurance, because that's how you get rich, I guess, right?
So you start selling mortgage protection. Were they having you sell mortgage protection and final expense at the same time, or was it they just really wanted you to pick one? Was that kind of the model?
So hindsight being 2020, right? So looking back, 2020 being this year. Hindsight though is the way the manager's compensation worked is he's taking a middle margin on my sales, right? Just like any hierarchy, right?
Sure.
Obviously, I had no idea how any of this worked at the time. But the reason he's wanting me to sell mortgage protection and not final expense and not Medicare is because he's going to make the most money on mortgage protection if I sell that.
Of course.
And so that's why he ran the agency the way he did. If I'm selling Medicare, his override, I think, was almost non-existent. So, so direct mail leads and mortgage protection and life insurance that was exclusively my first year in the industry.
Okay. So first year in, and you're selling a lot of that. How does the first year go?
It starts with, I'm talking to the manager and I'm like, listen, I don't have the money to drop on leads that you want me to right now. He's like, that's fine. And he takes a huge stack of mail and he's just like, here you go. And he gives me all the old leads. Right.
Of course.
And so I'm like, all right, let's do this. And I'm a bit of a chameleon. I can kind of blend in, I'm a very adaptable person by nature. And so I'm in this office, I'm listening to all these agents around me make phone calls. I'm staying late. I'm showing up early. I'm making phone calls on the weekends. And I really hit my first home run setting appointments on a Saturday. I have a stack of old leads. Saturday morning, I'm at home dialing. I set 10 appointments for the next week. And that was kind of really what propelled me. So it took about a month before I really got traction. I had very little training. I really had to teach myself most of what I did, besides kind of shadowing a couple of other agents. And then it starts off really well. And then I get some chargebacks, and then that really hurts me. And then I realize I have to sell even more to get out of the hole. But then I kind of developed by the end of this first year, because the average age, I don't know if this has changed or not, but at the time, the average age for a mortgage protection mailer, it was about 55. This was after the 2008 crisis at this point. A lot of these leads were from people refinancing their home, people refinancing are older people. They're trying to free up cash flow. And so you sit down with these people and they're between 50 and 60, and they're trying to get a $200,000 life policy, and they are on high blood pressure medication. Maybe they're diabetic. Maybe they had a heart attack. And I just have to tell them, I'm like, Mr. Jones, there's no way you're going to qualify for a $200,000 policy. But I have what's called, I'm trying to remember what I called it. I had some name for it. I said, I can't cover your whole house, Mr. Jones, but I can cover, I would do the math, right? So if let's say their annual mortgage payment was $10,000 or $12,000, right? Oh, critically closing. That's what they called it, critically closing at the agency. But I would map it on. I would say, okay, here's your options, Mr. Jones. Option one is covering your mortgage for a year, which is a $10,000 final expense policy that I knew he could qualify for, right? Option two, I'm covering your mortgage for 2 years. Option three, I'm covering your mortgage for 3 years. This is a benefit that goes directly to your spouse or to your children. There's no taxes coming out of it. They can use it to stay in the house. If you're the one bringing the money in. And that was really what became my bread and butter, is dealing with these old people, talking them off a cliff because they want a $200,000 policy that they will never get.
Never.
And Yeah. And I just became really good. Like that was that's the reason I stayed in the industry at all, was really figuring that out, is I can get you a tiny bit of what you want and it will help. And some people would be like, get out of my house, like,
Yeah.
I want $200,000 or get out of my house. It didn't always go down like that. There was a lot of people, they were happy to get anything, they were happy to get 10,000 or 20,000 in coverage,
Yeah. Yeah. So you're working at this agency, you're starting to kind of learn the trade, you're getting better at it. You're making sales. You're kind of learning from the other agents in the office. What gets to the point, and how long, part question, how long do you end up on this road until you kind of determine, hey, I feel like I need to kind of make a change? And two, how long does it take to where you feel like you're starting to hit your stride as an agent?
I would say some really great questions there. I'm going to answer the stride part first. I think the stride took me about 9 months, if I'm being totally honest. And this is part of what I hate about social media today, is there's so many people who look at successful agents and they think they can just jump in and start doing what successful agents are doing. And it's just, that's not it at all. Like, that's not how this industry works.
Right.
I would say by like 6 months, I was consistent, but at 9 months, you have such a solid pipeline built. I remember, thinking like, when I started to go underwritten, like I'm at the point where I'd come across certain policies or, certain situations where I'm like, okay, we're going to have to take you underwritten. This could take 8 weeks. By the time, we're doing a medical exam, then they're doing more underwriting. And so like, at that point, when you have this huge hopper full, and then all of a sudden, when some of these huge cases start clearing underwriting, that's when you feel like you've got the wind at your back.
Yeah.
I was at this agency for almost 3 years. One thing I want to kind of mention too, since we're going deep here, this agency, it was like the most turbulent agency situation that you could ever imagine. Management left to join a different agency. So like half of the management in this whole company, there was like a coup. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding at all. There was a coup at this agency, and it's a national agency, and a coup happens. Another agency recruits management. And so half the management leaves. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to leave because I'm brand new. It's only been like a year at this point. I'm like, do I leave? Do I stay? I kind of started to leave. And then I'm like, wait a second, this new agency has no idea what they're doing. It's a total scam. So then I pivot back and I stay. It was insane. It really was crazy. But so then I get more into final expense. And so now I'm really dealing with, I went from like partially dealing with seniors. Now I'm selling final expense full time because it's easier and it's more consistent. I'm doing mortgage protection a little bit, but I found that seniors were just kind of much easier for me to deal with. I can meet with them during the day. I liked that I could do 10 appointments in a day. Mortgage protection, I'm doing like a couple appointments at night or on the weekend because people are working during the day. But then it's like 2 or 3 years. And then kind of the next transition point for me was my manager at the time, different manager, because again, the manager that hired me, he's at the new agency, right? Yeah. He got promised the stars and the moon. And then my new manager was a total shyster. And he gave me, I'm buying leads at this point. I'm paying money for leads. I'm making money. I understand the whole thing. I've got to buy leads to get new leads, to sell policies. He took leads that he had already worked that he then sold to me, and he told me they were new leads.
Oh God, no.
And I knew for a fact he was lying. I went to like the top of the company, not the owner, but like directly under the owner of this national agency. And I said, hey, I'm like, my manager's lying. He sold me these leads that he already worked. I was like, this is total bullshit. I need new leads. I need consistently new leads, and they can't be worked. Like I can't have leads that someone else worked. Like it's not going to work like that. And they totally blew it off. They were like, no, Like it was just maybe a bad batch of leads. Here's some new leads. But they really didn't believe me at all. They didn't, and that was like the reason for everything. Like if we go back, and it's like, well, what happened? Why did you start Lead Heroes?
That was the breaking point.
What happened after? That was it. Like that was when I was like, screw all of you. I was like, I am done. And I literally just walked. And I argued with them for a long time. And then I just walked and I said, I'm done. I am doing this on my own. I don't need you. I don't need your contracts. I don't need your leads. I am done. And just waltzed out of that office with all my stuff and never looked back, dude.
Wow. So, and it's so crazy when you look back at events that at the moment when it happens, you probably feel like it's a horrible situation. You're probably like, okay, now what am I going to do? You're unsure of the future, but you look back on it and it's like probably one of the most impactful, blessed moments of your life. If I had to guess, would you say that's accurate?
100%. Like you couldn't have nailed it more. Like I have all this confidence right now in telling the story, but the reality is it was more of a tailspin. I sound strong leaving that office, but the reality is I leave that agency and it's just a tailspin because I'm trying to figure, it was very much so like getting into the industry initially, it was sink or swim. I did it again. I did it again when I left this agency and I'm just like, here we go. I'm like, I have no idea exactly what's going to happen from here, but I'm done working with you guys. You're a bunch of freaking crooks.
So did you go to another agency from then, or did you transition right into Lead Heroes from there? Take me through the next step of that once you left the agency.
Yeah, so I'm weighing a bunch of options, right? I'm trying to figure out. So at this point, by the time I left, I've been at this agency for almost 3 years. I'm probably 25 at this point. I just had my second kid. So, we're talking about that stress from before, more mouths to feed at home. I've got even less money saved up really than before because again, the idea of selling all my contracts were through them, right?
Right.
So this idea of selling a policy and monetizing anyone at that company, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I won't sell. And so I scramble to find some independent contracts. Contracting doesn't happen overnight. So I find I'm talking to a bunch of different people. I find a company I like. I submit for some independent final expense contracts. That takes time. During all of this, I'm trying to figure out where to work. I'm trying to work from home. And this is kind of a weird part of the story where there's a captive Mutual of Omaha office in Portland.
Ooh.
And it's more or less abandoned. This huge Mutual of Omaha office. Almost nobody works in it because Mutual of Omaha made the decision that they want to chase the broker side of the industry, right? Mutual of Omaha is making all of their money on the broker side. The captive agents, they're losing money. They're having to pay for rent. They're having to pay for leads and everything else. So basically, instead of just firing their captive agents, Mutual of Omaha kind of iced them out and just said, we're not going to help you guys or hire anymore. And so there was this giant Mutual of Omaha office with like one agent in it.
Oh my gosh.
I happened to know this one agent and I said, hey man, I'm kind of in between right now. I'm like, could I just like pop in here and just kind of work, make phone calls? And he's like, whatever. He's like, there's literally no one here and he doesn't care. And so I am officing temporarily out of this Mutual of Omaha office that is a ghost town. There is nobody. And dude, I would spend so much time walking around that office. I was looking at like the Mutual of Omaha fact finder, all of their policies, and it was wild.
Are there little artifacts and everything, and
oh yeah, they're
probably nonstop of it, like unlimited.
Yeah. They had like a policy closet, with all of their paperwork. I actually, I think I still have it. I actually got a copy of the Mutual of Omaha marketing plan. So when they brought in a new captive agent, they had like a marketing plan that they wanted. It was like a book, and I read the whole thing. I thought it was great. Yeah. They talked about diversification, doing some paid marketing. You're attacking your warm network, making sure that people that around you, you're helping them, and they talked about turning on all these different faucets, and I thought it was awesome. But yeah, there's just gems like that in that. Like it was cool. And again, Mutual of Omaha, I was selling Mutual of Omaha at that first agency I came in, and so I thought it was cool to kind of be in the office and see all this stuff firsthand.
Yeah, that's crazy. So how long do you spend? So at this point, you're on your own. You're independent at this point.
I am totally alone. I burned the bridges at this old agency because they screwed me over, and I'm totally independent, and I'm kind of ghost. I'm in this ghost office at Mutual of Omaha for probably 6 months, and this is again back to like kind of the tailspin. I'm trying to figure out, am I going to sell Medicare only? Am I going to sell final expense only? Am I going to try to do both? Am I going to sell over the phone? Am I going to sell face-to-face? Because I was really, really good at setting appointments because that's what I learned. But I really wanted to sell over the phone. And so I started selling some Medicare over the phone, but I wasn't getting enough traction that I could live off of it.
Yeah.
Just because of the commissions. And then I was struggling to sell final expense over the phone. And so I was still selling final expense in the field. So I was kind of doing like a little bit of everything. And that's when I was like, I need leads. Why don't I hire someone to make phone calls for me? When they generate a lead, I can then either sell to this person over the phone, or I can go out and see them in person, and I can just figure it out from there. So I was actually in this ghost Mutual of Omaha. I feel like Mutual of Omaha is going to reach out to. They're going to be like, we're sending you a bill for
all the rent that you've been owed us over the years. That is so crazy to me that they keep this office open with one agent in it, and it's just like this ghost town, and it's just like, it's almost like South Park put this episode out a year ago of like the malls, and the malls are all abandoned. Yes. And all the people in them are like rat people, and like someone comes in and they're like, who goes there? Because Amazon put them all out of business. Like that's what it is. That's what I picture when I'm picturing this Mutual of Omaha office.
So like literally this Mutual of Omaha office had a secretary that came in like once a week, and she was like a floating secretary between like 3 different offices. And then there was like one full-time agent, and then like maybe one part-time agent. So again, this office could probably have handled like 50 agents.
Wow.
And and it's in Portland, and it's at a major office building. And I'm just like, dude, the rent, the overhead just for this office has to be insane. But yeah, so I'm selling some insurance. I'm figuring out marketing. I'm 100% independent, and I make this hire, and actually the first person I hired was a Jamaican lady.
Okay.
And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, Jamaica, it's closer to us on time zones. They earn, their living wage is less than us, so I can pay her less, and she can generate leads for me. And she sounds awesome on the phone. Who doesn't like a Jamaican accent? Well, she had like 8 kids. I kid you not. This lady I hired had like 8 children.
Oh my God.
And you could hear her kids in a lot of I'm listening to the phone calls, and I told her, I'm like, your kids can't be in the phone. Like if your kids are on the phone, it's going to ruin this whole thing. Like I can't have you doing this. And so I fired her because she couldn't have a quiet working space.
Right.
And so then I'm like, well, let's try the Philippines. And so that's when I hired my first Filipino, and she just crushed it. She came out, she generated like 80 leads in the first like week and a half, 2 weeks. And she sounded great. And I still have her to this day. The very first Filipino I hired still works with me to this day.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was the inception right there, that exact moment. And I made my first leads, the first client that we took on at Lead Heroes. I was in that Mutual of Omaha office making phone calls, selling leads out of that office.
Oh my God.
And the only reason I did it too, I think this is important to mention, is I wanted to bring this girl on full time, but I couldn't handle the leads. And so her coming on full time was like 2 or 3 times the number of leads that I needed. And so my thought is, I sell the extra leads, I cover my lead cost, and now my marketing dollars are zero.
Yeah.
I did not get into this thinking I'm going to make a bunch of money selling leads. Like, that was never my intention at all. That was literally my goal, is zero out my marketing cost, bring this girl on full time, and keep selling independently as I'm starting to figure out, how to do that.
So throughout this 6 months that you're at the Mutual of Omaha office, when does the switch come that you're like, I'm onto something here? With this Filipino telemarketer that you've hired, she's generating leads, she's killing it. You're probably killing it making sales. You probably don't have time to work all the leads she's generating because she's doing so good. It sounds like that was the case.
Yeah.
When does the switch happen when you're like, wow, this could be a business?
It was probably about 90 days from when I hired this Filipino till about 90 days later. The demand for people wanting a caller, again, I just reached out to some agents I knew. I made a couple posts at the time. Like, I did very little. But then I quickly had a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, so-and-so said that they had a caller that they worked with from you. They had success. Or, hey, I saw that post you made a month ago. I am dying for a caller. Can I use your caller? And about 90 days after, all of a sudden the demand is at a point where, like, I have enough income coming in that, like, this is definitely its own business beyond what I could sell. And then I'd say about another few months after that, about 5 or 6 months from that first Filipino hire, now I'm at a point where I don't even have time to manage the callers because I have a group of callers now. I either have to full-time focus on callers and stop selling insurance, or I have to really cap what's going on with these callers and still sell insurance on the side. And I was like, I could always sell insurance. Insurance isn't going anywhere. I could jump back in and start selling at any point. I was like, let's just let's just see what happens. I threw a website together. I filed for my corporation after, kind of experimenting. And I was like, let's see where this goes,
So how old were you at this point when you first filed for the corporation?
I was probably about 25, between 25 and 26.
Okay. So 25, 26. So walk me through how many in the first couple of years of kind of growing the company. Cause how did the growth go? Did you guys experience any bumps kind of in the first couple of years? Like what were some learning curves that come to mind?
What's the mile? I was going to say IUDs. IUDs are not, what are the bombs like in the Middle East called? IEDs. It's IEDs.
Yeah. That's it.
IEDs. Yeah. There were a few of those for sure along the way. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about just how much time has lapsed since that Mutual of Omaha office. I think the biggest thing, like if there was advice I could give anybody, and this isn't just to insurance or a call center business, but scaling a business in general is, in theory, so much easier than it actually is. And I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
you think you can just, if the demand's there, right? If oh, boom, everybody wants insurance leads, I'm just going to grow my company to match this giant demand, cash out, and I'm done. It is so much harder to build that company, to scale it out. And I know I'm just preaching to the choir of anyone who's ever built a company in any space. It is so much harder than what it looks like from the outside. I can't stress that enough. And the biggest problem that we had was finding quality callers and hiring people who were going to stick around and, they were going to do the job well. I'd say the first really big one that we hit, the really big bomb that we hit is I had kind of a revolt. And what happened is I was hiring just friends and family of the Filipinos. All of a sudden, half my company came from one person.
Yeah.
And that person is talking crap about me, talking crap about the company, talking crap about other people.
Oh,
and
no.
I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are basically in control of half my company, and I'm in the back seat.
Yeah.
And if I fire them, I have half of my team is attached to this one cancerous person. And that was a huge disaster right there. And I ended up I didn't want to deal with it anymore. So I just cleaned house, fired half of my team. It was about 20 people. I took 10 of them and just punted them at the time.
Wow. So how did you avoid running into that issue going forward?
Diversification of hiring. We're at a point now where we've got boots on the ground. So, the structure would be similar to like here in the States. If you had like a physical location or you're advertising locally, like, hey, come work for this local company. I essentially had to create a secondary business in the Philippines that is built around recruiting and hiring callers and kind of facilitating that relationship. And I've been over there multiple times, which made a huge difference too. It builds a ton of trust, being able to be over there and be with my team and, really experience what it is over there. Like anyone can go hire a Filipino, but until you go over there and you're in the Philippines and you spend some time over there, it's a whole different ball game once you kind of understand what's going on over in the Philippines, and you can really relate to them and help them out and understand what they're going through. What are their struggles, and empathize with these people, Yeah,
for sure. And I think it's such a unique business model that you've created, and I mean, there's other companies that have tried to do what you do. I don't think there's any that come even close to kind of, executing like you guys do. And you do such a great job. And, as an observer, as a customer, I'm in awe sometimes of kind of everything that you guys are able to do.
I appreciate that, man. I'm sure there's other companies, I don't think we're alone by any means, but
sure.
I think we've spent an incredible amount of time, energy, and money on our team, our internal process. I mean, we have layers of staff and management. Like, I don't blame anyone when people tell me like, hey, we tried to do this. We tried to hire Filipinos and it was a disaster. I'm like, I get it. I made all those mistakes and then some. So trust me when I say there's no judging over here. If you tried to do this and it didn't work, I almost threw in the towel multiple times going down this road because it was so difficult to scale and to grow and to find trustworthy people to work for you. So yeah, it was crazy.
So last question I have for you, because we're getting close up to about an hour here and I want to be respectful of your time.
Sure.
And this was awesome, by the way. I mean, I think I
appreciate you asking.
I mean, I think this kind of gives everybody kind of an in-depth look on kind of your background. And, I think sometimes people kind of look at Glen as, the lead guy. Glen's the lead guy. Glen doesn't know what it's like for agents and things like that. And I just always point, I don't think I've ever had a conversation about it, but I would encourage anybody to just kind of go back and listen to this interview in this entirety if you're just tuning in now. But, Glen has been where all of you have been. He's been an agent. He knows what it's like to have a family at home to provide for. And, you essentially eat what you kill,
Yes.
And I think it's just such a unique perspective because there's so many lead companies that have never sold a damn insurance policy before, and I think it just comes from a very refreshing perspective from you that, designs the company. It's kind of, your vision that you've grinded it out in good and bad situations. And my final question I had for you that I thought was really an interesting one. Where do you see Lead Heroes going in the next 5 to 10 years? What's your ultimate vision for it? Like, where do you see it? What do you see it becoming at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, we've made, like I just mentioned before, we've made a lot of mistakes. I'll be the first one to admit it. One of the bigger mistakes we made recently is we tried to take on direct mail. And we did a ton of it in a short amount of time. And I realized basically the moral of the story is I can't be everything to everyone, right? I would love to be like the central lead vendor for Facebook, for direct mail, for seminar. Like I would love to say, hey, come to Lead Heroes and we will handle all of your marketing needs. But the reality is we are extremely proficient at one thing, and that is anything call center related, appointment setting, live transfers, generating leads. We do all of that extremely well, but we can't be everything to everyone. So I believe that the future of Lead Heroes and really what I'm trying to build out, and you'll see a lot of this hopefully by the end of this month, because we're going to relaunch a completely revamped website. I want to help agents as much as possible. If you don't know, how to sell, I want to have material that helps teach you how to sell. If you're not sure who you should, contract with for your upline, I want to have a bunch of different people in the industry that I would point to and say, hey, you could contract with them, or them. You really can't go wrong. And then, maybe some bad ones. Hey, avoid these people.
Yeah.
And so, instead of being that person for everybody, I see it more as like a connecting piece. Like I want to be able to connect people to their destination of where they want to go. And I think I can do that in an A to Z format. I think we can do that on the lead side without being the lead vendor. If you want a really high quality direct mail lead, hey, go check out Lead Concepts, right? Mm-hmm. Christopher Weir, and essentially, focusing on what we're good at and then referring to other people in the industry who have done the same thing I've done in their verticals, who have built incredible companies, and working with them, because just like I've told you before, Christian, is I think there's an argument to be made that Lead Heroes should be in your marketing portfolio, but by no means am I saying like, hey, we are the only company that should be doing marketing for you. I don't believe that at all. I think it takes several different companies, and I think you should be diversified. And I want to be able to kind of facilitate that growth for everybody.
Well, I think that's very true. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, over the course of this year. And I think that's spot on. I think, people ask me, what do we do that helps us be so successful, or me personally? And it's that I don't ever rely on one source of leads. I mean, if something is flopping, it's okay. I got 6, 7, 8, 9 other, avenues of getting business. And I think that's a really smart approach, and I love the aspect of, being the best you guys can be at what you guys are good at and not trying to, be everything to everybody. And I think that's smart. I think that's the way to go about it. And, we've obviously loved working with you guys. If you guys have watched this and you've enjoyed it, give Lead Heroes a shot if you've never worked their leads. They got some really, really great leads. I think they got something for everybody in the Medicare space. If you're doing final expense, life insurance, and And shameless plug, we have a exclusive group discount coupon of SFMA, standing for Six Figure Medicare Agent, 10% off all orders on the website. So yeah, guys, I'll drop a link to that in the description of this video, because this will end up on YouTube, and then I'll drop a link to it on the chat for this live stream as well. But thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And I thought it was just a really, really great in-depth conversation. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of this, kind of seeing where you started, what you went through, and where you are now.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me a chance to kind of explain myself, because I think that's probably one of the hardest parts about this journey is I didn't realize getting into the lead vendor business or the lead space, I didn't realize how negative of a viewpoint people had for lead vendors. And so that's something like I've been trying to overcome from day one. So yeah, I really appreciate you allowing me to kind of tell my story, and yeah, hopefully, it gives people a little better understanding of what we do and why we do it. And yeah, give it a shot, you guys. If you are looking for leads in the Medicare final expense space, or you're needing phone work done, I definitely think that give us a shot. See if it's a good fit for you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to tune in. I think we'll be back next week, right, for a Taco Tuesday, now that AEP's over. And I'm
coming back in a big way.
I'm going to overnight a Taco Tuesday shirt to me, so that way I have it by the time I'm back in town next week.
Do it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching this, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.